calf area of the femur, and here comes the linea aspera of the posterior border of the femur, continue laterally at the lateral supracondylar line, and medial lip of the linea aspera is continued at medial supracondylar line up to the adductor tubercle, and in between this triangular area is called the popliteal surface of the femur, which having no muscular attachment over this popliteal surface. Then knee joint is formed by the lateral and the medial condyle of the tibia bone. The posterior surface of the condyles is the medial border of the tibia. Below it is expanded medially to form the medial malleolus. This is the lateral border of the tibia, the shaft of the tibia, and the lower end of the tibia. Laterally there is a bone that is the head of the fibula, articulates with the tibial to form the superior tibiofibular joint, the narrow neck, then the shaft, the medial border, introitious border of the fibula, facing with the lateral border or introitious border of the tibia, and below the fibula again articulates with the tibia as the inferior tibiofibular joint, with the lateral malleolus, and in between the two there lies the introitious membrane. In its upper part has got a large gap, and it is closed in the lower part, forming the middle tibiofibular joint, but there is a small hole is present in the introitious membrane below, through which the perforating branch of peroneal artery goes into the anterior compartment. Then the posterior surface of the shaft of the tibia, it has got a spiral line, or called the soleal line, over the shaft. Then the lower end of the lateral and the medial malleolus, they articulates with the superior articular surface of the talus to form the ankle joint between the tibia, that is called the tibio-talar joint. While the lateral surface of the talus articulates with the lateral malleolus, and medial surface of the talus also articulates with the tip of the medial malleolus. And here this talus bone, it rests on the bone of the heel, that is the calcaneum. The posterior surface of calcaneum is visible when we are seeing the leg from the posterior aspect. Then this calcaneum bone, forming the lateral border of the longitudinal arc of the foot, goes anteriorly, and its anterior part goes laterally, while the head of the talus, it goes anteriorly from the body into the medial longitudinal arc of the foot. Here, the head of the talus, it articulates with a board-shaped bone that is called the navicular. And navicular articulates with the three cuneiforms, the medial, intermediate and lateral cuneiforms. The medial cuneiform is articulates with the first metatarsal bone, with below is the head and above is the below is the base and above is the head of the first metatarsal. The second metatarsal goes to the intermediate cuneiform. The third metatarsal articulates with the lateral cuneiform. So this is the medial border of the foot, continuation from the leg. Now the muscles of the, so like all other compartments we have done, posterior compartment is also having its own muscles, its own artery and its own nerve. But this posterior compartment is divided by a facial septa into a superficial and a deep compartment. So this longitudinal vertical septum, it is attached to the medial lateral interosseous border of the tibia, plus it gets attached to the posterior border of the fibula into a superficial and the deep compartment. And the muscles, when we study about the superficial and the deep compartments of the posterior compartment of the leg, the superficial muscles, and second group is the deep muscles. The superficial muscles, they are four. One is called the medial gastrocnemius, and second is called lateral gastrocnemius, and third is called plantaris, and the fourth is called soleus. Similarly, deep is also having the four muscles. Names of these muscles, they are popliteus, tibialis posterior, flexor hallucis longus, then flexor digitorum longus, so 4 and 4 muscles you have to remember in both the compartments. The deep compartment is having the 4 muscles, and the superficial compartment is also having the 4 muscles. The soleus, laterally the lateral gastrocnemius, and the plantaris, and medially the medial gastrocnemius. So this is how we draw the transverse section, showing the all compartment muscle with their muscles into them. And the nerve also we can show here. The nerve is the tibial nerve here, between the superficial and the deep compartment, and accompanied by the posterior tibial artery with the vena comitans, sandwiched between the superficial and the deep muscles of the posterior. So we will take one by one. First we will take the deep muscles. So deep muscle, as we have done the popliteus, we have already done. So popliteus muscle we have done with the knee joint. That is, everything is special about this muscle: origin, insertion, action, and nerve supply. So this muscle takes origin from the anterior surface of the lateral condyle of the femur, and then it runs on the lateral surface in a groove made for its tendon on the lateral surface of the lateral condyle. Then the tendon is intracapsular and extrasynovial, and this tendon becomes extracapsular behind the fibrous capsule of the knee joint, below the arcuate popliteal ligament. which is the extension of the semimembranosus, aponeurotic extension of the semimembranosus muscle, which is inserted on the posterior surface of the medial condyle of the tibia. So its two extension, one is called the oblique popliteal ligament and this is the arcuate popliteal ligament. So below this arcuate popliteal ligament, the popliteus muscle becomes extracapsular and it is inserted over the area of the soleal line. So this is the popliteus muscle we have already done in the knee joint. Everything about the popliteus. Then another muscles are the tibialis posterior. As the name suggests, it will take origin from the posterior surface of the tibia. So this muscle will take origin from the posterior surface of the tibia below the soleal line, plus adjoining part of the interosseous membrane as well as in the upper part of the shaft of the posterior surface of the tibia. And after that, this tibialis posterior tendon, it passes the tendon downward and it passes behind the medial malleolus. And then this tendon of the tibialis posterior, while passing behind the medial malleolus, enters into the sole of the foot. Just over the sustentaculum tali. The sustentaculum tali is a shelf-like projection. It is a shelf-like projection on the medial aspect of the calcaneum. So this is called the sustentaculum tali. So sustentaculum tali is the shelf-like projection from the medial surface of the calcaneum. So it touches the sustentaculum tali, then the tendon of the tibialis posterior will enter into the sole of the foot. It enters into the sole of the foot after touching the sustentaculum tali. So sustentaculum tali deviates the direction of the tendon of the tibialis posterior towards the sole of the foot below the navicular bone or below the tuberosity of the navicular bone. And when it enters into the sole of the foot, the tendon of the tibialis posterior becomes aponeurotic. It becomes thin and sheet-like, and it is inserted over all tarsal bones of the foot except talus. So this is the medial aspect of the foot. On the medial aspect, we can see the medial surface of the shaft of the tibia, and lower expanded part is called the medial malleolus. The medial malleolus, it articulates with the talus. The anterior part of the talus from the body comes the head of the talus, and this talus is resting on the bone of the heel, that is the calcaneum. And on the medial aspect of the calcaneum, there lies the shelf-like projection that is called the sustentaculum tali. Then the head of the talus, which articulates with the board-shaped bone, which is called the naviculum. The plantar surface of the navicular bone has got a groove, a oblique groove, like we have done the cuboid bone. The navicular, board shape, the talus, this is the calcaneum. The navicular bone and the plantar surface of calcaneum bone is having a ligament, and this ligament is called the spring ligament. Spring ligament. The spring ligament is also called plantar calcaneo navicular ligament. Plantar calcaneo navicular ligament or spring ligament. And this spring ligament prevents the head of the talus to touch the ground. And it maintains the medial longitudinal arc of the foot also, the spring ligament. The injury of the spring ligament may lead to the flat foot deformity or pes planus, while the contraction of this ligament more than the normal causes the deformity that is called the pes cavus, in which this curve between the calcaneum and the navicular is higher up. So a cave-like structure is formed that is called the pes cavus deformity of the foot. Now this navicular bone, as we know, it articulates with the three tarsal bones, the medial cuneiform, the intermediate cuneiform and the lateral cuneiform, which reciprocally get attached to the first metatarsal, second and the third metatarsal, so it is the medial longitudinal arc of the foot. Now we are doing the tibialis posterior muscle. That tibialis posterior from the posterior compartment comes downward tendon and it passes behind the medial malleolus. After that it touches the sustentaculum tali. Then it runs on the lateral medial surface, medial border of the foot. And after touching the tuberosity of the navicular bone, the tendon becomes aporotic and goes into the sole of the foot and inserted and gives slits to all tarsal bones, all 5 metatarsal, all 3 cuneiforms, cuboid bone, calcaneum bone, but not the talus. Why? Because talus is not available. Here you see the tendon of this tibialis posterior is separated from the head of the talus by the spring ligament. So talus is not available for the insertion of the tibialis posterior because the talus head is covered by the spring ligament in the sole of the foot. So that is the tibialis posterior insertion used. Then the second muscle, third muscle is flexor hallucis longus. So first word is telling the action. So posterior compartment is also called the flexor compartment of the leg. So it will do the flexion of the ankle joint, and the flexion here is called the plantar flexion. And what is the movement of the plantar flexion? Heel is raised above the ground. So when the heel is raised above the ground, so this action of the foot is called the plantar flexion. And all these 7 muscles of the deep and the superficial compartment, they bring about the plantar flexion, that is in which heel is raised above the ground. So this is the most common action while we are walking and stepping forward from a stationary position. Plus it is also used by the dancers when they dance on the toes. So heel has to be raised. And second word is hallucis. Hallucis, we use the word for the big toe. As we were doing the polysis for the upper limb, for the thumb, for the great toe in the lower limb, we use the word hallucis. Again the word longus means the tendon is long and it will be inserted on distal phalanx or terminal phalanx, but not on the proximal or the middle phalanx. As we know, great toe is only having 2 phalanges. One is proximal, other is distal phalanx. While all other fingers, they are having the 3 phalanges, as we have done in the anterior compartment as well. So this Flexor hallucis longus muscle, it takes origin from the upper 2/3 of the posterior surface of the fibula. Upper 2/3 of the fibula, and then the tendon of the muscle, it crosses from lateral to medial side, because it has to go to the great toe, it has to go to the medial longitudinal arc. So this tendon also passes behind the medial malleolus. Then this tendon will touch the sustentaculum tali, deep to the tibialis posterior tendon, and then it passes below it enters into the sole of the foot, and from here it is inserted on the base of the distal or terminal phalanx of the great toe, that is the flexor hallucis longus. So action of this muscle will bring about the flexion, the plantar flexion of the thumb, like this. So this movement is done by the flexor hallucis longus, the plantar flexion of the great toe. Then third muscle is the last muscle is the flexor digitorum longus. Again, the first word of the muscle is telling that the action at the ankle joint, so it will do the plantar flexion. The second word of the muscle is digitorum. It means the tendon of this muscle will go to the 4 digits, 4 fingers. For that, the tendon of this muscle will divide into 4 slips. The last word is longus. So longus means it will insert not in the middle phalanx, it won't insert on the proximal phalanx, it will insert it on the distal or the terminal, because it is the long. So that we have to go into the names of the muscles, they are telling many things. So the origin of the flexor digitorum longus muscle is also from the fibula bone, not from the tibia. The flexor digitorum longus takes origin from the posterior surface of the shaft of the tibia with the adjoining part of the anterior membrane below the tibialis posterior muscle. And this tendon almost runs parallel with the tibialis posterior tendon, passing behind the medial malleolus, and comes on the below the medial malleolus on the medial surface of the foot here. Here these 3 tendons and a artery and the nerve will be held in position by a medial or tibial collateral retinaculum. So this tibial collateral ligament, or also called the flexor, it suppresses the flexor tendons of the posterior compartment in their anatomical position and touching them on the surface, medial surface of the calcaneum. So that is called the flexor retinaculum. It is the condensation of the deep fascia of the foot. Then this tendon of the flexor digitorum longus, it runs on the lateral surface of the medial surface of the calcaneum below the sustentaculum tali. From here, this tendon will enter into a oblique groove present on the inferior surface of the navicular bone. So in the sole of the foot, it enters into a oblique groove present on the inferior surface or the plantar surface of the navicular bone. This oblique groove changes the direction of the tendon of the flexor digitorum longus, as we have done the peroneus longus tendon direction changed by the groove present on the plantar surface of the cuboid. Similarly, a oblique groove is present below the navicular bone. And because of this, the tendon of the flexor digitorum longus changes the direction and it goes forward and laterally. It goes forward and laterally below the navicular and equiniform bones. Here it divides into 4 slips. And all these 4 slips, they go to the 4 digits and get inserted on the plantar surface of the distal or the terminal phalanges of all the 4 fingers. And because they are attached on the plantar surface of the phalanges, so action of this muscle will bring about the plantar flexion of the fingers, like this. Plantar flexion. Because it is inserted on the tip of the distal phalanx. So that is the action of the flexor digitorum longus. So this is how we do the muscles of the deep compartment. Now comes the superficial 4 muscles. So superficial 4 muscles they are, one is the medial gastrocnemius. So this medial gastrocnemius muscle, it takes origin from the medial superior surface of the medial condyle of the femur, just near the adductor tubercle, the medial gastrocnemius, outside the fibrous capsule of the knee joint. The lateral gastrocnemius also takes origin from the superior surface of the lateral condyle of the femur. The lateral gastrocnemius, plus a little bit from the lower part of the lateral supracondylar line. So these 2 muscles, they run obliquely downward above the fibrous, posterior to the fibrous capsule of the knee joint, that forming the floor of the popliteal fossa, and the crossing of these 2 muscles, they form the inferior apex of the popliteal fossa, because they form the inferomedial and inferolateral muscular boundary of the popliteal fossa, as we have done it. So that is the 2 gastrocnemiae muscles. Then these 2 muscles, then they run over the popliteal fascia, covering the popliteus muscle. Lateral gastrocnemius and lateral gastrocnemius. And 2 muscles, they unite together. And these are the quite thick muscles. And they form the bulge over the upper part of the posterior aspect of the leg, that is called the calf muscles. They are called the calf muscles. Sometimes, in some people, plantaris muscle is also present. So plantaris muscle is only present in the 10% of the population. And when it is present, it takes origin from the lower part of the lateral supracondylar line. And it runs with the lateral gastrocnemius. Muscle. Then comes the soleus muscle. Soleus muscle is called the soleus because it resembles the sun rays. The word soleus derived from the sun-like appearance of this muscle. So this muscle takes origin from, number 1, from the soleal line or the spiral line on the posterior surface of the tibial shaft. Number 1. Number 2, it takes origin from the posterior surface of the head of the fibula. So this is the fibular head. The tibial head is from the soleal line. Then the tibial and the fibular head, they are joined by a tendinous arc which is intervening between the fibular and the tibial head. And this tendinous arc will also give rise to the muscle origin or the soleus muscle. So from these 3 points of the origin, the soleus muscle runs superficially downward, and this soleus muscle on its posterior surface receives the insertions of the lateral and the medial gastrocnemiae also, and plantaris muscle also. So plantaris muscle is also fused with the soleus muscle, but it remains mainly on its medial aspect till its tendon downward into the lower part of the leg. So plantaris must accompany the medial border of the soleus. So these 4 muscles, the medial gastrocnemius, the plantaris and the lateral gastrocnemius along with the soleus, they all fuse together in the lower part of the posterior aspect of the leg to form the one of the thickest and the strongest tendon of the human body, that is the tendocalcaneum or tendoachilles. Tendoachilles or tendocalcaneum. So this is the how the 4 muscles they unite to form one single tendon, the tendocalcaneum. As we have done in the front of the thigh, all 4 muscles they unite to form the quadriceps femoris muscle, and a very strong tendon of the quadriceps femoris muscle is inserted on the tibial tuberosity with patella in it. In the same way, all these 4 muscles unite to form the single strong tendon which runs on the lower posterior aspect of the medial malleolus and the leg, and it is inserted slightly on the medial side of the posterior surface of the calcaneum in its lower rough part. The upper part is smooth and having a bursa between the tendon and the upper posterior surface of the calcaneum, and prevent the friction between the bone and the tendon. So this is how the 4 muscles they unite together to form the, what are the calf muscles. So this soleus is also called the peripheral heart of the human. Peripheral heart. Because through this muscle passes the perforating branches of the short saphenous vein, which passes through the muscle, and they communicate with the vena comitans of the peroneal artery as well as the posterior tibial artery. Now this is the origin insertion. Now come the action. So as we know, the action of the, whenever the soleus muscle will contract, what will the action? The heel will be raised above the ground. And when the heel is raised above the ground, this motion is called the plantar flexion. So that is the action of all the flexor compartment muscles, the posterior compartment of the leg, including these 4 muscles of the superficial compartment as well as the deep compartment. They bring the same movement, that is the plantar flexion, or to raise the heel above the ground. Now comes the nerve supply and arterial supply. As we know, the hiatus magnus lies just above the adductor tubercle, and it is formed by the adductor magnus muscle, the hiatus magnus, And through this hiatus magnus enters the femoral artery. Now it is called the popliteal artery. It runs obliquely, touching the popliteal surface of the femur. And then this artery forming the deepest content of the popliteal fossa. Then this artery runs down towards the upper border of the interosseous membrane. And here this artery divides into a lateral peroneal artery for the lateral compartment and a medial artery is called the posterior tibial artery. And anterior tibial artery, it goes anterior to the interosseous membrane into the anterior compartment. This posterior tibial artery runs on the posterior surface of the interosseous membrane, and it supplies all the muscles coming in its way. After supplying all the muscles, the posterior tibial artery comes down behind the medial malleolus and it accompanies the tendon of the flexor digitorum longus, and it enters with the tendon into the sole of the foot. What will happen to this artery? We will do when we will do the sole of the foot. So this artery passes behind the two tendons. First the tibialis posterior, then the flexor digitorum longus, then comes this artery. Then the nerve supply of these muscles of the posterior compartment is the tibial nerve, which is the one of the bifurcating branch of the sciatic nerve at the upper apex of the popliteal fossa. So this nerve runs downward vertically after taking origin, after bifurcation. Later is the common peroneal nerve, and the continuation of the sciatic nerve is the tibial nerve. After the popliteal fossa is the most superficial in the contents of the popliteal fossa, the tibial nerve. It passes between the two heads of the gastrocnemiae. Like the popliteal artery, it also runs towards the upper part of the interosseous membrane. So it passes of the upper border of the interosseous membrane. Here this tibial nerve accompanies the posterior tibial artery, and it is present between the superficial and the deep compartment of the posterior compartment of the leg, and it gives the various branches to all the superficial and the deep muscles. So especially the branches to the soleus muscle, they are multiple, because soleus muscle is quite broad muscle in the upper and the middle part of the leg. So the branches of the tibial nerve supplying the soleus is like the sun rays. So multiple branches supply the broad soleus muscle. So after supplying all the 8 muscles of the posterior compartment, the tibial nerve then accompanies the lateral aspect of the posterior tibial artery, and it also passes behind the medial malleolus, accompanying the artery into it disappears into the sole of the foot. What will happen to this tibial nerve? We will do when we do the sole of the foot. So this is how the structures they pass from the posterior compartment behind the medial malleolus into the sole of the foot. So there is a definite arrangement and a formula to remember the structures passing behind the medial malleolus. So first of all, in the sequence wise, first structure from the posterior compartment behind the medial malleolus entering into the sole of the foot is the tibialis posterior muscle. First, it will enter into zone. Number 2, structure which is entering behind the medial malleolus, below the flexor reticulum, then into the sole of the foot is the flexor digitorum longus tendon. Flexor digitorum longus tendon. Then the third number, structure passing from the posterior compartment into the sole of the foot is the artery, that is the posterior tibial artery. Posterior tibial artery. And the fourth structure which passes from the posterior compartment into the leg is the tibial nerve. Tibial nerve passes below. And the last structure which enters from the posterior compartment in the leg is the only one muscle of the tendon left, that is the flexor hallucis longus. The last to enter. So this is how to remember the structures passing behind the medial malleolus from the posterior compartment into the leg, with the diagram also showing it. So how to remember this sequence of these 5 structures? There is a formula to remember. The doctors are not happy. The doctors, D stand for tibialis, T for tibialis posterior, D stand for flexor digitorum longus, A stand for artery, posterior tibial artery, N stand for nerve, the tibial nerve, and last S stand for the flexor hallucis longus. You remember, the doctors are not happy. So that is how to remember this structure passing behind the medial malleolus. A sequence is there to them. So this is how we do the posterior compartment. The last part we have to touch is the applied anatomy of the posterior compartment. So, applied of the posterior compartment is having the number 1, is the gastrocnemius sprain. So again it is a sports injury, occurs in the hockey and the football or the rugby matches, in which there is a sudden spasm of the gastrocnemiae muscles or the plantaris, which causes the sustained state of the plantar flexion, and the spasm of the muscle takes some time to break, and then person feels normal in position. Another affection of this is the soleus muscle. As we know, soleus muscle is the one of the constituent of the calf muscles. And especially it is having cosmetic value. So especially in the females, some females, they are having very thick calf muscles and their lower end of the leg suddenly narrows down. So it doesn't look good for them. So they want to minimize and streamline the shape of the leg. The extra thickness is removed, not surgically, a little bit surgically. In this what happens, we know the soleus muscle is having a sun-shaped origin from the tibial, fibular head and tendex arc. So this soleus muscle is having the multiple branches of the tibial nerve entering into it. So in order to decrease the horizontal thickness of the soleus muscle, we surgically cut the peripheral nerves, branches of the soleal, branches of the tibial nerve. So by cutting the peripheral branches, so the lateral part of the muscle undergo atrophy, while the middle part is retained, and this will change the shape of the ugly looking broad calf muscle into a streamlined part of it. So that is the cosmetic point of the soleus muscle. Especially it is done in the Chinese and the Japanese women. So this operation is very popular in these countries because they are having short stature, and it leads to the very ugly looking calf muscles in them. Third is the tendocalcaneum or tendoachilles. As we know, the tendoachilles is the strongest tendon of the human body, and this tendon of the muscle undergoes tear or damage. It may be due to some medicine, drug induced, that is the quinolone, or some injections given, may be having side effects on the tendocalcaneum, or just the cut injuries of the tendocalcaneum by a metallic base of the bucket held by a person, and the lower bottom of the heavy filled bucket, the sharp margin bottom of the bucket may having the cut injury on the calcaneum while lifting the heavy bucket, and the lower part will strike against the usually the right calcaneum, right tendocalcaneum. Or sometimes it may be because of the overuse of the tendocalcaneum in some jumping or walking for a long distances. So anything can tear the tendocalcaneum, and that lead to the difficulty in the plantar flexion, or what is called to raise the heel above the ground, and the first step of the walking, in which we put the foot forward. So here the plantar flexion is there. So that is absent. So that is the main complaint of the person. So when we examine this person, then we see there is a gap in the tendon by patient is lying on the prone position, and we just put the finger on the tendocalcaneum. So there is a gap in it. So the gap in the tendocalcaneum will confirm the diagnosis of the what is called the tear in the canal. Then we do the repair operation to maintain it. Another case related to the apparel of the posterior compartment is related to this tendocalcaneum is the PPRP. PPRP is nothing but this is the post-polio residual paralysis. Post-polio residual paralysis. As we know that polio is a viral disease, and this polio virus is very fond of sciatic nerve. So this polio virus attacks the sciatic nerve and it damages its myelin sheath. Probably this must be the thickest nerve, so virus is attacking it most frequently. So because of this degeneration of the nerve, it leads to the degeneration of the muscles supplied by the sciatic nerve, that is the hamstring muscles, as they are supplied by the tibial component of the sciatic nerve. Plus we have seen that all the three compartment muscles of the leg, plus the muscles of the sole of the foot, they are all supplied by the sciatic nerve branches, that is the common peroneal and the tibial. So all the muscles supplied by the sciatic nerve will be undergo atrophy. And because of the atrophy, there will be Volkmann's ischemic contracture or Volkmann's contracture type the state. The muscles, they becomes ribbon-like, non-functional. And if you see a patient of the polio, the lower limb of the affected side will be flexed at the knee joint, and there will be wrist drop also. And all the calf muscles and the muscles of the hamstring and the leg muscles of the compartment, they are thinned out. So the lower limb affected side will be merely a skeleton. Muscle fibers, they are just thin and rubber-like, the ribbon-like. So such a case is done because of the post-polio residual paralysis. So the main complaint is that there is a flexion of the affected knee joint and there is a wrist drop, deformity, and heel is raised above the ground. The foot in the polio cases is in the plantar flexion fixed. So the walking of the patient becomes very difficult. He or she can only walk with the help of a stick. A long stick overheading his head. You might have seen the cases of the polio, holding this stick in the hand, and the affected lower limb is encircled around this and supported by this rod or the what is called the bamboo stick. So in these cases we do a operation on the tendocalcaneum. The name of the operation is called the J-plasty. So J-plasty is the name of the operation. So in this, what happens? The heel is raised above the ground. And that is the difficulty in walking of the patients. And the tendocalcaneum is shortened because all the muscles, they are shortened. Or the muscles of all compartments of the leg, they are undergo contracture after the injury to the nerve supplying them, the sciatic nerve and its branches. So here the tendocalcaneum becomes very thin and contracted, which causes the patient walks on the toes, and that toes is also not touching the ground because of the flexion attitude of the knee joint and the paralysis of the and contracture of the hamstring muscles, which are bringing the flexion at the knee joint. So here our motive of the operation of the J-plasty is that we should make the heel at least touch the ground, so that the foot of the patient should touch the ground, and we give the subsequently the clippers or support to the foot and the leg, so that the patient can walk like the normal leg of the opposite side. So here the J-plasty operation is done, in which what happens in the operation, what we do, the shorter is this right. So here we make a Z shape, incision obliquely running on the tendocalcaneum is cut like this. This is Z is formed. You see this Z is formed. This and this Z. So they call this Z-plasty. So after cutting the obliquely the tendocalcaneum, After that, one is this proximal slip. Then after cutting, this will be the distal slip. So we mobilize the proximal slip and we proximal the distal slip. And we stitch them. So what we have done here? We have lengthened the tendocalcaneum. And with the lengthening of the tendocalcaneum, with the Z velocity, now heel will touch the ground. So this is called the Z-plasty, or what is called the TA lengthening operation. TA, tendo-Achilles lengthening operation. So that is to be done in the case of the post-polio residual paralysis patients. So at least they can walk with the help of the support with the clippers. So that's all about the compartments of the leg. In this way we see that how the tibialis posterior muscle and all the muscles of the posterior compartment, superficial and the deep, they march behind the medial malleolus and they enter into the sole of the foot along with the posterior tibial artery and the tibial nerve. Now another structure which is function has to explain is the inversion movement of the foot. So inversion movement of the foot, like we have done the eversion in the lateral compartment. So posterior compartment has got the one more action, that is called the inversion of the foot. So like inversion of the foot is the movement of the foot. Number one, in which the medial border of the foot is raised above the ground. And number two, so that the sole of the foot should face medially or inward. So whenever the foot is medially rotated on the subtalar joint, this movement of the foot is called the inversion movement. So, and this inversion movement is done by the two muscles. One is called the tibialis anterior from the anterior compartment, and another is the tibialis posterior from the posterior part of the tibia, which is going into this. So their insertion is very, very important. How they do the inversion movement of the foot. So number one is the tibialis anterior. We have seen that the tibialis anterior is inserted over the medial cuneiform bone on its medial surface. And if you measure the medial border of the foot, so this medial cuneiform bone comes exactly in the middle of the medial border. Plus it is also inserted a little bit about the base of the first metatarsal also. So that is the tibialis anterior from the anterior compartment is how it is inserted from the tibialis anterior muscle here in the middle. So when it is inserted on the middle of the medial border, then what will happen when it will act? Then the medial border is raised above the ground. That is the first part of the inversion movement. As for example, you want to lift this bone, or it is like a stick. You can pick from the back posterior side, then only this part will be raised. If you pick from the anterior part, only this part will be raised. But if you pick the stick or the bone from the middle, then whole of the bone is, or stick is in your hand. Same mechanism is here. So the tibialis anterior is inserted on the middle of the medial border, so that inversion, the first part of the inversion movement can be observed, that is the medial border of the foot is raised above the ground. Now second part of the definition of the inversion is so that the sole should face medially or inward, and this is done by the tibialis posterior muscle, which is taking origin from the posterior compartment, and this muscle goes into the sole of the foot. And what we have seen the insertion of this tibialis posterior muscle, it is inserted on all tarsal bones except the talus. Why? Because the tibialis posterior muscle has to tilt the whole of the foot. all the tarsal bones and their intertarsal joints. That's why when tibialis posterior is inserted, it gives aponeurotic and it gives slips to every tarsal bone on its plantar surface. Because whenever this tibialis posterior will be contracted, then all the tarsal bones will be raised from the ground and the sole will be tilted medially or the inward. So the tibialis posterior subserves the second part of the definition of the inversion movement. That sole faces the medially. So like eversion, the first movement, that is the medial body is raised above the ground by tibialis anterior. This movement occurs at the level of the intertarsal joints, while the tilting of the foot sole medially, this is the movement which is occurring at the subtalar joint, that is the below the talus, that is the talocalcaneal joint. So here when this talus moves along with the all other tarsal bones, then the whole of the foot will be facing medially or inward.